I'd love to help you get vulnerable. Let's get naked.
Hey everyone, I'm Anne, and welcome to the Let's Get Naked podcast, where we dive deep into vulnerability. In this space, we'll explore what triggers us, uncover the patterns holding us back, and discover how to take charge of our own growth. If you're ready to dig in, face the tough stuff, and transform your life, then buckle up. It's time to get naked. Today, we're stripping it all off with my oldest daughter, Brittany Anne. We have also are being joined by Belinda and Casey, who some of you know from earlier podcasts with them. Casey is my life wife. Belinda is my best friend on the planet. Brittany apparently has never heard that term before.
Life
Wife,
yes.
Yeah. So they're joining us as well because they've both been involved in our family for decades and offer some really great perspectives into, Casey's practically raised Brittany,
yes,
and so she's Brittany's second mom, and
Belinda
Belinda
did it on the weekends when Casey couldn't be on.
Right, exactly. So they offer some great perspective into that. So I want to just mention that Brittany, for those that don't know her, has always marched to the beat of her own drummer and has been the one on this planet to introduce weird to me. She has always kept it weird, not a little bit, like full bore, open weird. As I have grown in on my own journey, I've realized how amazing that is and really come to appreciate that. For those that don't know, I think weird is a compliment, the highest compliment, because it's doing what you know is authentic for yourself and not giving a shit what anybody else thinks. And that to me is amazing. So kudos to you for what you bring to the table for that, and welcome. Welcome to all the ladies. Yeah, exactly. So welcome to all of you. So we're going to dive in a little bit and talk about some of the things that Brittany dealt with me as a mom, which will bring up hopefully a lot of different topics that people can take into their own homes and talk with their kiddos about. I think a lot of people are not as vulnerable as I'm willing to be when it comes to my parenting or lack thereof. I was a baby when I had Brittany. I was 19 and a few months, and so I did not bring. I didn't have an A game to bring to that parenting situation. Brittany and I have joked around over the years because she's always said, like, you're a better mom to Wiley, who's my youngest. And it's like, yeah, I'm an adult now. I couldn't believe that they sent me home with a child. At 19, I still smoked. I smoked all the way through my pregnancy with Brittany. That's terrible and disgusting. And then smoked in the house when I had a baby. Can you even get your head around that? Casey just groaned. She's like, oh my God.
I had no idea.
Yeah. No,
Explains a lot.
I have so much character now.
Right, exactly. Absolutely. As the older generation, we can go around and say like, oh, we drank from the hose and whatever. And Brittany can be like, my mom smoked in the house. Like, how outrageous
Truly
is that?
Blessed. Truly blessed.
Yeah. So, but Brittany brings a different perspective to things because Brittany and I have really been able to embrace our relationship as we've gone, and it grows every day. I appreciate her allowing me to have a seat at her table of life, and we make progress every day on just talking through things. We've started a couple of years ago really sharing with each other how we felt about stuff, more so Brittany being willing to share with me about my shortcomings and me holding space for her. That's not an easy thing to do, as we've talked about, because, when you hold space for someone else and you were the villain in their story, you have to be willing to really have big shoulders to do that, and also understand that that's her truth. It doesn't matter how I remembered it. That's how she remembered it.
Villain is a really strong word. I wouldn't go that far.
You understand what I'm saying?
I do,
in some of the things where I didn't do you right, I am the villain in that story. And so it isn't. It's just a choice of words where it's. I'm not the rising star who was like, oh my God, I'm going to champion for you. I didn't do you right for a lot of your childhood, and I understand that looking back. I really do. I look back at the time when you were little. I didn't have a clue. I look at people who are parents now. Excellent. They do such a great job, and they're paying attention, and they're whatever. I had no idea. I was just trying to keep babies alive, and keep food on the table, and the things that happen when you're 19 and 20 years old. All of my friends were out talking about what color nail polish they were going to do or figuring out their hairstyles. And I was trying to figure out how to, in a budget, put formula and Pampers and, keep your biological dad from, whatever he was doing, or whatever that looked like.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it was not a great thing. I moved away from my family who would, could have been my support system, but I moved down to Arizona when I was pregnant with you. So I literally had no one down here. And then, dun, da, 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 in comes Belinda, which savior, I became friends with her when I was pregnant with you. She was the one that watched you when I went back to work and really incorporated her into her kiddos, so I feel so honored to be sitting here with this group of women because Casey has, been with our family for 15 long time.
Since she was 8.
So 20 years, right? So Belinda's been in my life and in our family's life for 30 years, and Casey has been for 20 years. I mean, these women that are sitting here have probably done more to raise you than I ever did, And so I do come from a place of it takes a village, right? And I realize my shortcomings with things, and I never was like, don't parent my kid or don't tell me how to parent my kid. I was like, I'm open to suggestions. I don't know what the hell I'm doing here, because I didn't. And so that's a big thing. They have great stories about who you are as a person and what you brought to the table. And so,
I can only imagine the things that they say behind closed doors.
Open doors too.
Yeah,
right.
I mean, we say it right out in the open.
In front of my back, behind my back.
Yeah, exactly.
From the rooftops.
So tell me what that was like for you when you were younger and having the different people that were involved in parenting you, and you were a product of divorce early on, right? I left your biological dad when you were 5, and what do you remember about that time, or what do you remember about early childhood that sticks out to you as far as challenges or things that were going right, or what does that look like for you?
Yeah. There were definitely a lot of times where I felt like very alone and almost like an afterthought, or like I didn't belong, like I was in the way, kind of, just something else to have to be moved around. Mm-hmm. Not necessarily like I brought joy or value to anything. It was just like, I get you here, get you there, get you fed. Like it just felt like very transactional. I think for a long time growing up, like, we didn't really like hug as a family. Mm-hmm. There wasn't really much like affection between a lot of people. And having like so many different nannies or family members, or I just felt like I didn't get to see my actual family very much. We were just, we all had our own lives. It felt like we were just kind of roommates. We all shared mm-hmm. the house together, but ultimately it was just, going from one place to another. There wasn't a lot of stability. Mm-hmm. And not to say that, we were always fed and we always had a place to sleep at night. It was never about scarcity as much as it was just, feeling like emotionally abandoned, like you couldn't really talk to anybody. There wasn't a real connection you could make. It was just kind of, we're getting through this. Mm-hmm. Everybody just get to the end of the day. It was,
Yeah, Brittany was very, she was a very emotional child, and she's a very emotional person, and for me,
she's a Cancer like me.
She's a Cancer like,
you notice my
necklace? Cancer like Casey.
I love it.
So she was definitely challenging for me specifically because for those that don't know, didn't deal with emotion for decades. Mm-hmm. Like I didn't deal with any of it. I pushed it down. It wasn't something it was messy. It was uncomfortable for me. I didn't have any interest in pursuing that or figuring that out. I thought that was a sign of weakness, which I think caused problems with us. I wasn't able to be the mom that really was able to support you how you deserve to be supported. I set a horrible example for you girls specifically because I think I started getting it figured out more so as time went on. But definitely before I got sober, it was very transactional. And it's interesting to hear you use that phrase in describing our household and our family, because that's exactly what it feels like when you say that, and I think for a child, what a terrible thing. You know, that hurts my heart for you as that child, because I would want to protect a little girl that didn't feel like she was supported in all the ways, you know? And I don't remember a lot about the conversations or anything that maybe would have been brought up, other than, yes, you just, okay, we're going here, we're doing this. We're,
like we have lunch at this time, we have dinner at this time, you're going to wake up at this time, you're going to go to bed at this time. It was very much, we knew what we had to do, and then we were just kind of in our room, or, you know.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I feel like that's how I ran things. It's like, I'm doing all the things, I'm hitting all the points. Everyone has food, and everyone has their projects done, and everyone has whatever, but there was not like, hey, let's snuggle up on the couch and watch a movie. And I look at that from a perspective of being a mom, and you would think that would be really important to do with your children, you know. So then what does that look like after the fact? Which, you know, we've talked about how I'm honored to still be sitting here and have Brittany want to have a relationship with me, because I realize that I did all of those things wrong, you know, and not in I don't say that to be like, oh, you know, anything other than just acknowledging,
abusive,
just acknowledging.
Absent.
I was, my focus was elsewhere, you know? And so to be able to heal that stuff with Brittany has been really the honor of my life, because she is open enough to have those conversations with me. And we've had the conversations where she's told me the hard things, and where I've listened and held her while she cries and screams and all of the things, because she's not wrong in any of the feelings that she has. And I think what a cool story to be able to help you heal from trauma that I caused. You know, obviously you have your own road and your own path of being able to go down to kind of fix those things in yourself. But I hope that it's easier to be able to do that when you have someone that's on the other side of that, that's willing to own up to all of those pieces. Whether I remember it that way or not, it doesn't matter, you know? And so I always liken that to when you say, you know, you called your biological dad and said, like, I want, you know, to try to work through some stuff. And he was like, it wasn't like that. And I always just remember, like, well, it wasn't like that for you, but how dare you not hold space for her? Because that's what it was like for her. You know, when you look at that, your childhood as an example, obviously I have my own set of things that I'm looking through different lenses, and my perspective as the parent. You're the child in that situation who's not being supported for all of the emotional needs that you have. Or, you know, sure, great, you were always fed, you always had clothes, but that's literally like the bare minimum. You know, we're supposed to, you know, hold space for our children and help them grow emotionally and help them, you know, deal with all of life, whatever that is. That was not a place I came from. You know, like you said, having a bunch of nannies, having people. I mean, thank God Casey was a constant in your life. Thank God Belinda was a constant in your life, that hopefully these ladies were able to offer, you know, some stability in that way as well, because I was out to lunch, you know. May I ask you when you first realized that I was an alcoholic?
You know, for a long time, I just thought that's how adults were. You just party all the time. Like that's the benefit of being an adult, is you get alcohol. And so for a long time, and you know, like the weekends I would spend over with Chris, like, and getting to see Auntie drinking and stuff. And it was like, no matter where I would go, it was always adults, always drinking. So I didn't realize that anyone really was an alcoholic until Emily went to rehab the first time, and you know, with Aunt Maureen. And I think that's really when stuff, you know, after I'd left home was when I start to know. But even then, I had no idea, because we didn't talk. Like, I was in the dark. And I think even now, like, I look back on some of that stuff, and I had no idea. You know, nobody really told me, like, what a parent is supposed to be or what not. And I think about, like, some of the stories I've told my friends of, like, the way that I was treated by you or Chris or whatever, and it was like that's not healthy, like that's not normal. And it's like, well, that was how I grew up, like that's just normal to me. So yeah, I didn't even know that you had a problem until it was already way too bad. I thought that that's just how adults were, and that was
interesting.
That was my mom, that was my dad, that's all I knew.
I think too, because you weren't a sloppy drunk. You didn't.
No,
come
you were nice. You were fun.
You didn't come home like a mess. And
That's when you would cuddle me, is when
I
you
know.
were drunk. Then you'd pet my hair. Remember,
It's like Auntie Belinda with dogs when she would kick down.
Exactly. That's when you get down.
Right.
That's when the best
Exactly.
times happen.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I was like, oh, that's why people drink, is it's
Yeah.
fun. It's good.
Yeah,
That's,
for you, just having a good time with your friends, doing whatever.
exactly.
I can see how you would have been completely oblivious.
Yeah, I had no idea.
I mean,
that
it was the same
even
for
a
me 'cause
problem.
I was taking care of you guys at that time, and I didn't notice either. You know, I knew she drank, I knew she had a good time, but
Yeah, but it was like everybody drinks.
Right.
You know, like
that's
I
just
thought it was casual. I
yeah.
thought that's just what happened. So
Belinda, when did you know I was an alcoholic?
Oh, that day we sat at the Arrogant Butcher and I said, do you think you'll ever stop? And he go, no. And I'm like, why? It's just because I don't want to. And you were at the condo. We went to go have lunch. The only reason why I even thought about it is because I was already thinking about it in myself. And being in an already alcoholic family, my dad, my grandfather, my uncles, I recognize it, but like still in denial and also just unaware because we were young. So it wasn't like I had all the answers or I knew. It was just, I think that time in my life, there were so many things that I knew weren't right and I was questioning. I wasn't obviously talking to anyone about it, but there was definitely things that I was questioning about myself and yeah, so.
Brittany, do you go back and start reconciling some of the stuff? Do you realize that you have to fix the junk from your childhood? And do you?
Oh, yeah.
So how do you feel like you do the work associated with that?
Honestly, it's been a lot of different weird things for me growing up because I think, and one thing I brought up to you not too long ago of like the brushing your teeth thing. You know, you'd always ask us like, did you brush your teeth? And whether or not we could just say yes and get away with it. And I always, for whatever reason in my head, you know, because stuff was so scheduled in our lives, it was like, you know, you wake up, you go to bed, like we're doing these things. That's what you do. I always thought I had to brush my teeth like when I woke up and when I went to bed. But I'm weird and I like to eat my breakfast and then brush my teeth because I don't want to have toothpaste. Like I like orange juice. It's a whole thing.
Yeah.
But ultimately, like, you know, I thought you couldn't, you know, you have that weird brain block of like, well, I missed the window to brush my teeth. It's not
So now I don't
morning
have
time.
to.
Exactly. And like, okay,
I always
well,
just thought it
missed
was
the
a
chance.
rebellious like middle finger to mom thing.
No,
Yeah.
in my mind, there's a schedule for things and I missed that appointment.
Yeah.
And in the past year, I've broken that cycle of like, I can brush my teeth literally anytime, anywhere. No one can stop me. No one's going to tell me it's too late in the day. Like it can be before breakfast. It can be after. And just so many weird little things like that where you have to.
It's crazy.
Say like, man,
you can do it as many times as you want to.
So many, yeah. With whatever flavor toothpaste you like, you know.
You can even pick the color of your toothbrush.
You have so many options as an adult.
Endless.
And as a kid, I think you just, you know, you think things are one way because somebody told you that one time, or, you know, you don't understand to like think further past something. You just like, that's what the parents said. That's what I have to do, whatever it is. And you just don't think beyond that.
Yeah.
So now as an adult, it's like, oh, I'm realizing I have all these weird things in my head of, that's not how things have to be. That's not how I have to do things.
And you
not
can
how
just
I
fix your
feel.
shit, right?
It
And you
is.
can just fix your shit. I think once you realize that, it blows your mind wide open because
Yeah.
it's like, I have control over any of this stuff. So I love that awakening for you because you realize doesn't matter what it is you do. Say you put your pants on one leg at a time or you put your, whatever, it doesn't matter. You're looking at it and you go, does that resonate with me? Do I want to do it that way? Because once you open your eyes to things, I feel like everything becomes something that you're curious about, you know, whatever it is. It's, why do I do it this way? And even if you can't remember and go back and figure it out, you can say, is this how I want to do this? Is this how I want to believe things? You know, I was raised this way to be XYZ or blah, 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 blah. Does this land with me? Does this resonate with me? And if it doesn't, How do I want to change that? What does land with me? And that can also always change. You don't have to just be set in something that you were dealt when you were growing up. You know, I think the structure of things I felt like was important to me. You know, I felt like when I first split up from Chris, it was, okay, 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. That was before really cell phones. And so I would have to go 2 weeks without seeing the girls or talking to them. It was torture. I mean, that's literally torture, but it's like I would shut that off because of the emotions associated with that. And it was all business because I wasn't willing to allow myself to feel that, you know, and that feels gross to even say out loud right now that I protected myself in that without figuring out a better way to work around that for you girls. You know, I think going through a divorce with kids is torture, just torture. I mean, little kids, it's torture. It was a messy divorce. It was.
Yeah, I saw the messages he wrote. Like, what a scumbag.
It's pretty bad.
Girl, like, props to you for
Yeah.
getting out of that abuse.
Exactly.
For real.
It's pretty bad. It's a lot of that stuff is awful. And also, you know, he was so hurt that he didn't know to protect you girls. You know,
I mean, you both were so young.
Yeah, we totally
You both were kids.
Right, I was 24 years old.
Yeah.
I had
No,
you know,
seriously.
I had you when I was 19. I had Emily when I was 22. You know, then I'm going through a divorce at 24. What does that even look like? And I wouldn't change any of it for the world, but I look at some of the stuff that I navigated at a very young age. I handled my own divorce because I couldn't afford an attorney. I, you know, dealt with just all of the things, getting a restraining order because it got really bad, and just trying to protect you. But he was very spiteful. You know, I would tell him, and he knew how I felt when we were married, but you can't let the girls watch movies that are not appropriate, aged for them, right? And he would do shit to spite me, where he would let you girls watch R-rated movies, like horror movies, when you were little girls.
I was
and
there.
Then, I know.
It was terrible.
And it has fucked you both up from stuff like that. I mean, it still does, right? The stuff that Emily still talks about. And it's like, great job, Chris. I've forgiven him for me, but great job. You know, so for parents that are listening, when you're dealing with a divorce, who cares how hurt you are with whatever that situation is? You guys are adults. Protect those kids. Mm-hmm. Don't bring them into, you know, the fact that your feelings are hurt and you can't get over that someone decided to leave. So what? Who cares? Protect those kids, because now you have adults that are now having to unpack all of the shit that was handed down to you during all of that
have
time.
Nightmares for years.
Absolutely.
I mean, I've just barely gotten over my night terrors with the PTSD medication I've been prescribed.
Right,
I mean,
exactly. As a
horrifying.
28-year-old woman, right?
Yeah.
Because someone wasn't adult enough to say, like, let's not do this to our kids. They're coming from a place of spite to the other parent. I mean, that's just, and again, I don't think that I did everything perftly either, but I look back at that and
you didn't actively go out of your way to hurt us.
I was just, you know, I was just trying to protect you. I was a ding-dong kid out to lunch myself, just trying to keep my head above water. But I wasn't trying to, like, spite anyone by doing damage.
No, that's one thing that's always crazy to me, too, looking back on that. Because I remember, like, going over to his house on the weekends, and he just always had bad things to say about you. There was never... if he ever mentioned you at all, it was to say something bad. Yeah. And, you know, for me, it was like, oh, well, she's not that bad. You know, in my head, I was like, whatever, he's got his own trauma. But then it is, like... As an adult looking back on that now, I mean, like, that was just so weird. Like, you never said a single thing about him ever, like, good or bad. Like,
not in front of you girls. Not in front of you girls. It wasn't. That's not
he
the right
actually
thing.
was trying to turn us on you, but it's like, you were the one protecting us. You're the one caring for us. We were never like uncomfortable or scared to be around you. Yeah, like it's just crazy, like the manipulation that an adult can have on a child and someone you're supposed to look up to and trust and is supposed to care about you, a place that's supposed to be safe, and to manipulate you to get back at your ex, or you know, because you're a bigger guy and because you think, oh, I've got the power, and it's like, to whatever people's sick, twisted minds have for playing, like, keep kids out of it. At the end of the day, please. Just,
you're absolutely right, and I just
fuck them
think
up for the rest of their life.
Right, and especially because we have 50% divorce rate, right? And half the people are going through divorce. I think half of the people that stay married don't want to stay married, but they think that they're doing the right thing for the kids. Yeah. And it's like, how are we not all fucked up? Right? How are we not all fucked up? Because we're all dealing with those things from our parents, regardless of what it is that they're bringing to the table. And again, I realize everyone's doing the best that they can, but that was something that was really important to me, to not talk bad about him in front of you girls, because who cares that I think he's an asshole. That was still your dad, you know? And so I remember when we were living at the Bernil house, so you must have been, when we lived there, you must have been 20?
Yeah.
Right. So I don't.
I'd been out to college and living
you lived
other
there
places.
just for a very brief time. But I remember you. I still remember we were standing in between closets over in my side of the house, and you said to me, "Mom, I just want you to know that I realize that it must have really been hard for you to not talk bad about him, and I get it, and I really felt like you understood that, because I hurt in all of that stuff, you know, that he did some horrible things throughout our divorce. I mean, he was mean. He was so hurt, and he was so mean. And it was just like, to not speak out and vent and whatever. But Cameron and I were always very cognizant of not speaking in front of you kids, not saying bad things about him to you guys, knowing that you would figure it out as you got older, and just to be able to really love on you and try to keep you guys safe in that situation. But what a horrible feeling to have your kiddos and then have to send them over to their dad for every other weekend, or, you know, whatever the parenting schedule was at whatever time throughout. It was the most helpless feeling on the planet, you know?
I know this, like, you know, you can't go back and change anything, but I wish you had said something, because, I mean, obviously, like, you can't just be like, oh, you know, watch out, he might be abusive.
Right.
But I had so many experiences that I've told people about growing up, and, you know, obviously now I recognize that it was abuse in so many different ways, but, you know, as a kid talking to other friends and whatever, and I didn't realize so many, you know, I think I even told you, like, when I was 12 that what was happening, and you're like, oh yeah, like, that's not okay. And like, then we had less time with him, but like, I didn't realize he was abusing me, or, you know, like, a lot of the things I thought, like, well, that's just how dads are. Like, that's normal. That's casual. Like, I had no idea that what was happening to me was something that I could have avoided, or that, you know, like, that's not what love is. That's not, you know, I don't know. It's just so many things where I wish you know, could have just taken me out of there. I wish I didn't have to be around him. I wish I didn't have to go through all those things.
Yeah.
But ultimately, like, you don't know it's abuse. You don't know that you think that's your dad. That's just what dads do. Like, he's the dad. That's the dad thing. And no, like, abuse is not, it's not in every relationship. It's not casual. Dads should not be allowed to do that. No one should be allowed to do that. It's not love.
What specifically are you talking about?
Man, just like...
If you're willing to share. If
Yeah,
you're not willing to share,
I mean,
please feel free to say, like,
being
no.
slapped in the face, being choked, being bullied. Basically, he bullied me.
He was a bully.
He bullied me and my sister.
Yeah, he
I
was a
mean,
bully.
you know, making us think that, like, he had these, like, sick mental games where he would, like, try to get us to believe something and then be like, oh, no, it's just a joke. Or, like, you know, have us, I don't know. He was very cruel. And, you know, when I look back, I think, like, he was like a fun uncle, you know, like, he would take us to Legoland, or we'd go to Glamis, we'd have all this fun, and then he'd get drunk. And then, you know, you hope that you were asleep already or somewhere else, and that he was busy enough doing his own thing that he wouldn't bother you. But, yeah, if it was where you were still awake doing whatever, or he felt so inclined to be that angry, you know, it's just unfortunate that adults can hurt kids.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It is. You know, how do you feel like you're healing from that, from any of that? That's trauma. You know, that's definitely trauma. And it hurts my heart to think about a child who's, like, hoping that they're asleep once their dad starts drinking. Hoping that they don't have to have interactions, or hoping that, I mean, God, that breaks my heart. Yes, that happens. And here's the thing. This is the thing that sucks. People that talk about, like, with their kids and splitting up and the other parent having say, that shit happens. And I went to the court with different things, and there's nothing we can do about it, because that's just you know, that's his way of parenting, or that's this or that. And it's like, you can't get your head
Not
around.
everyone should be allowed to be a parent.
Right,
Let's
absolutely.
just
But
say
you just
that.
can't get your head around. The courts aren't there to help in those types of situations. But also, who are you helping from? Because I wasn't the best to you either. I mean, yes, I provided structure and I didn't abuse you guys and like in that way, whatever, but I wasn't also a great parent. So that's part of coming from the other side of that now. And like, what are you doing to heal from stuff like that? Because you don't want to carry that baggage around. You don't want to carry that baggage around if you ever decided you wanted to be a mom, you know, and you don't want to carry that baggage around so that you have all of those triggers. You got a minefield of trigger opportunities in your entire childhood. So what do you do to work on fixing that shit?
I've definitely had a lot of therapy over the years, which I think has helped a lot. I think a big thing too is being able to talk with you and, you know, with my sister, who's also gone through some of the experiences. We haven't been able to have a ton of conversations because it is so emotional for us. It, you know, we just bring out the worst in each other, and especially getting to that point of emotional intensity. I mean, I don't think either of us has really fully delved into everything that happened. Because it is, you know, there are periods of time where she lived with him or I lived with him, or, you know, we both did. And we've both just been through a lot with that situation. And I am doing my best to talk about it you know, I'm on, I don't know, I think I've always been depressed, but like I'm on antidepressants. I'm on, my anxiety for my PTSD. I've got all sorts of stuff going on that I'm working on. You've introduced me to Reiki and what is the sound? The breathworks.
Breathworks.
Amazing. Would recommend 10 out of 10. Get yourself a gal.
Get yourself a gal.
I mean, and that's the thing I think we've talked about too, is it's a lifelong process. It's not like you just step through a door and you're like, all right, and I'm healed. It's every day. I'm writing in my journal. I have a little gratitude list I make every day, or as
Choosing
often
to
as
do
I can.
the work. Yeah, choosing
exactly.
to do the
and
work as it comes up.
Looking at the positive side of things, remembering like all the people that I do love, all of the good relationships that I have. And it is just putting the past behind you, letting it stay behind you, and just continuing to look forward and, you know, pushing love, positivity, being the change you want to see. So, yeah.
Interesting. Did you guys?
Well,
I mean,
wow, is it that good?
what would you like? What would you like me to say? What would you like me to say after what you just shared?
Neato.
I mean, my kiddos and my family have a exclusive opportunity to bust my balls at any moment. So you just never know what's going to come out.
Have you talked about our safety word as a family?
Oh my God.
That was instilled because of me, because I have so many problems.
Wow. Brittany has anger issues, which you look back at where she's come from and you can't blame her for that. You know, there was a lot of angry stuff that came from
all sorts of stuff.
From all sorts of things. So Brittany does have a quick trigger to shoot first and not even worry about the body count after the fact. So Cameron will say it's one of my finer parenting moments.
Honestly, that changed the game for our family with that night.
Yeah. So
Seriously.
the girls would get into it and which made it super uncomfortable for Wiley, because there's a 7-year difference between Wiley and Emily. And so he's this little boy who's just thinking he's going through, and then Brittany comes in just guns a-blazing, you know, and Emily and her would just get into it.
Emily knows how to start the fire.
Emily knows how to,
in the worst way.
Emily knows how to push the buttons, but so we as a family installed a safe word, which is triggerfish in our family, and we all had to sign a contract, which is if we're at a place where somebody wants to shut the conversation down because someone else is coming in too hard on it or whatever it is.
You're just not comfortable at the time.
It doesn't even
They're
matter.
making an annoying
you don't have to
sound.
have an excuse. You can just triggerfish that, and we've been, I think, pretty good. I mean, that was 4 or 5 years ago that we implemented that, and I feel like that's really been a game changer for our family, because you and Emily know how to push each other's buttons.
Oh, seriously.
Does Emily remind you of Chris? Is that part of, like, when you say you guys doing the work and like working through some of that stuff together and how hard that is, does she remind you of, I mean, obviously of that time for sure, but is that a thing?
Kind of. I think more of my problem is that I remind her of Chris, and I feel the way that she treats me and the way, I don't know, I guess being around her reminds me of that time. And I think especially because we still have so much trauma and, you know, things to talk about that we just potentially may never talk about. I mean, those are sores or wounds or, you know, it's just icky yuck that is always kind of between us. That is unfortunate. I would love to break through that or, you know, clean up that emotional mess. But I don't know. There's a lot of trauma there for sure. So
It's just so fucked up, you know, like they didn't do any of that and they have to fucking clean it up.
I know. You're absolutely right.
I mean, and I'm talking from the hot seat also, because obviously you grew up with my kids, same ages. And I'm just sitting here listening to her and thinking, well, Chelsea was next to her for most of that. So I'm hearing you, and it's very helpful, and it's very impressive that you have come so far, such a long way in such a short period of time, which a lot of us are doing these days.
Yeah.
But you know, like doing the work and doing all the things that you're doing, no doubt you're already on your way. So it's really good, but yeah, it's really fucked up.
It's work. It's work, you know, and you know, when we talk about, yes, it's painful and yes, it's all the things, but as you're working through these things, whatever they are that are coming up, don't you feel lighter in doing that? Don't you feel lighter as you fix your shit? And it's like, again, I always say this, the trauma that happened to you when you were a child is not your fault, but it is your responsibility to fix it. Because if you take the things that you had that happened to you as a child, which you have a whole pile of them. I mean, you're never going to run out of material. You have a whole pile of them. But if you don't fix those, and then something comes in and triggers that something in you, and then you lash out at other people, how is that fair?
it's not.
It's not. It's not. And you always take it out on the people that are closest to you. So for me, it's when something triggers me, get curious. Get curious. Where is this coming from? And is this something that I want to bring forward in my adult life? Because I'm an adult now. And I don't have to come from the same place of that hurt, wounded child that dealt with the abusive dad, that dealt with, you know, all of the trauma that came from all of the things. Yeah. You know, like everybody has a fucked up story from their childhood. You know, I know very few people that are like, my childhood was great. I do know a few, but I know very few people. I can count them on 2 fingers. You know, everybody else had shit that was messed up in different varying degrees from different adults in their lives and in their past. So it's like, great, but let's clean that up. And a lot of stuff you don't even realize is a thing until it sparks something and you come out.
And then you get triggered.
Right. And if you come from a place of anger, which is your MO, right? Every time you get angry about something, get curious. You know, because you know it's coming from a place of you're defending something inside of yourself that it was like, why does that hurt? You know, it's like the whole banana. If you cut a banana, you can't really tell from the outside, right? You're a beautiful woman. You touch that spot, it's brown on the inside. That wound doesn't just go away unless you fix it, you know? So fix it. But you have to be willing to look at that and then be curious about it. What did you see, Casey, from the outside of things when the kids were growing up? I know you were part of the shuffling them, helping shuffle them back and forth between households.
Well, I definitely saw Brittany and Emily's relationship get rough at times. The one I remember most specifically is I think you choked her or something about a hot dog. It got
yeah,
really
Brittany
intense.
broke Emily's nose.
Yeah.
For
She
those of
fell
us.
on the ground.
Okay.
She fell on the ground.
She didn't
choked her
fall on the ground
unconscious.
for those of us that are part of it.
No big deal.
So there was a lot of, just a lot of tension at times with that. I also remember a time where I had to step away from you guys because I just didn't know what else to do. But overall, I felt like you guys were just being regular sisters. But something that made me think of you guys when you were little that made me really sad is how excited you were to see your dad at the airport when you guys would be on your way to go visit him and dropping you off and seeing how excited you were. I didn't realize that you guys felt that way, that you were waiting for him to fall asleep and not be around. So that was really hard for me to hear right now. It almost feels like you're just being passed on to whoever. And I feel guilty in some way not even realizing that you felt that way. So I'm sorry if I ever let you down in that way.
No, you were there to catch me. You know, there's a bunch of people there. Unfortunately,
wasn't her actual biological parents.
Yeah, I mean,
I know,
they
but
were the ones playing the hot potato. Everybody else was there to be there for support. But
I don't know.
mean,
I feel like I should have been more in tune with something like that.
we were very strong. You know, we didn't really let on. It's not like we had like bruises all over our legs or arms
I
or
know.
anything. It was.
And I think at the time you guys didn't even maybe realize.
Yeah.
But-
No, because I thought
yeah.
that was what parents
Yeah.
were.
I
I
don't-
thought that was normal.
I don't think you do. I literally, even after I went through that whole divorce, I didn't realize how abusive that was until I've gotten healthy and looking back at how the control, how you know, when someone is super controlling of you, what a mental abuse situation that is, or you know, the mental and emotional abuse. He was a mind game guy. I mean, he was just. And again, I look back at that, and he's not the villain in my story anymore. I've forgiven him because he was a broken man. I look at the childhood that he was raised in. He was a broken man, you know? So does it make it okay? Of course it doesn't. But hurt people hurt people.
Yeah.
There's a reason there's that saying, you know? And so he was trying to take control over things because he never had that when he was growing up, you know? So then that was his power of being able to control other people. But I look at it and I think, how did I even fall into that? I just remember, you know, I remember that Mother's Day when we left and I came back. We were gone for a couple of hours. Belinda and I went to a spa and the girls were still really young. And he chewed into me in the front fucking yard on Mother's Day because I was gone an extra half hour, whatever the hell it was that we were gone. And just belittled me like I can't even tell you. And I thought, what am I doing here? You know, I've started to unpack all of that stuff, mainly after the ayahuasca thing where it became apparent that I needed to work on those things. But I didn't really take it for the emotional and mental abuse that it really was until much later. I just thought, yeah, that's fucked up and whatever. But no, there's a lot of that stuff that's really bad because I would also
nobody was
pretend
paying
to be
attention
asleep.
to us as kids, you know.
Right.
Everybody was doing their own thing, and yeah, like we were passed around. It wasn't like nobody was asking us how we were doing, like what was our day, like what had happened. It was just like, okay, well now you're home. Now, you know, go wash up. We're gonna have dinner. Okay, well dinner's done. We're gonna watch TV for an hour and then go to bed. I mean, everything was like
Transactional.
very transactional.
The transactional
absolutely.
word that hits home for me because I don't disagree with that.
Yeah.
You know, that's what it felt like from my side too, because I thought that was what I was supposed to be doing, is making certain that you had the things and the projects were done. And like, and if it wasn't me that was doing that, making certain that I had people in place, either nannies or other people that would be able to provide that. But I look back at that, Cameron and I will say like, oh, who was that one, you know, or Riley will be like, well, who's that one nanny? And I start doing the math and I'm like, it doesn't feel like stability,
No.
you know, that I provided to you guys, even though, and especially absolute craziness of like, okay, we're going to rip your whole entire house down and we're going to move you over here. And now we're going to move you over
Use
here.
your bedroom in the dining
I
room.
mean,
and
oh my God.
Here's a plastic siding wall for
Well,
half
yeah,
your
we're going to do a home renovation project.
Yeah.
Don't worry, kids. All of your bedrooms are gone. You're sleeping in the living room. You're sleeping in the dining room. Like,
That was like a split-second decision too. It
oh
was
my
just like
God.
It just happened. all
I
of a
am a
sudden.
Yeah.
lunatic. I am a lunatic. And then it goes back to Belinda with the bing, 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 jumping on the trampoline.
Well, you've always ran hard.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
mean,
I
and
fucking hard and
especially
fast.
especially when you're married to Chris, like that's all I remember is you always moving, doing something, and yeah, it did make me. I was exhausted watching.
Just watching, yeah. And why did I feel like I had to do that? I mean, I look back at some of that and it's like, I'm exhausted just thinking about it.
You're running from your demons.
Part of your people pleasing.
Yeah, you know, it's crazy. I feel like I probably was very people pleasing in that moment because it was like, I'm going to be the perfect wife. I'm going to make sure that I have everything held together. I'm going to be the mom who's got the cute kids and the blah, 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 blah. And I don't think I ever paid attention to anything inside myself ever when it came to all of that, because I had already known that you just push everything down and just as long as you keep doing that, that works until it doesn't, right? Until the wheels come off of that when you're 39 years old. You know, that's when I got sober and realized like, oh, you're supposed to show your emotions, those pesky things that keep coming.
I getcha, yeah.
Right, exactly. But like when you would have emotional outbreaks when you were a teenager and dealing, you know, or a child of any
I'd
age.
close myself in a bathtub or closet situation.
Yeah,
so
and
you
I would be
wouldn't hear
like-
me as well, and you would still hear me, and you would come down and say, "Can you stop crying so loud?" And I
She's not wrong.
would cry as hard as I could into a pillow. I mean, I cried all the time. I
not
was
wrong.
crying for attention essentially, and couldn't get a break. Nobody
She's
wanted
not
to hear me
wrong.
crying. Nobody wanted to help me. It was very sad.
Doesn't that feel terrible?
I'm just thinking of all the things that I did.
I know.
Not to you, but to my kids. It's
Same.
just and then indirectly to you, because half the time you were there too. So it's like anything that I did to Chelsea, I did to you. Sorry.
I saw some nasty shit for sure, but you know, I had my own parents to deal with, so ultimately I was just glad that you weren't hitting me, you know. So
Yeah.
I saw a lot of abuse on all sides from all sorts of parents, from all sorts of things. I mean, people are
hard to hear?
disgusting.
No, because I know it.
Yeah.
I mean, I relive it in my head.
Yeah.
You know, and for a very long time, I've always looked up to you, and especially as a mom. Not in all, I know.
I was like,
red flag, red
But this is the
flag.
thing, because the way I interacted with you when I was at home taking care of them, yes, you weren't there, but to me, I was like, she's getting shit done. She's making a life for them. So seeing how you would interact, I knew that you weren't perfect. I knew that there were things that you could work on, but there were things that I know specifically that I've taken away from how you parent. And looking back, it's like, maybe I shouldn't picked up that one. Like nothing major, but I remember you used to tell the kids, like if they would ask you something, and not in a mean way, you would more in a way of like, yeah, whatever. But you would say, I don't care, whatever. I don't care. I don't care. And I say that to my kids all the time. And I've noticed that it comes across as if I truly don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
When I really just mean like, yeah, totally fine.
Yeah.
That's just a small one. But there's other things that have come up where I'm like, I think that's
Maybe Anne isn't the right person to be taking parenting tips from.
Well-
No one should be taking parenting tips from me.
I think I learned a lot though
Yeah.
doing that
Oh,
because
Yeah, lessons for sure.
it's a classroom. It's a classroom.
it really was.
Yeah.
And I'm going to disagree with you
Okay.
because obviously she can tell you stories.
Yeah.
I was the female version of Chris.
Yeah. Did you realize that?
Oh yeah, no, I saw it. Yeah,
Yeah.
No,
Yeah, I didn't
what
see-
Chris
I
would do
didn't
to
see
me,
it
not
as-
to like the same extent, but her and Chelsea. I mean, it,
Yeah. And I don't
Towards
think I
you?
realized that.
no, like
Oh,
like Chris would beat me and she would beat Chelsea, and not that it was beatings all the
yeah.
time. Sometimes it was
Getting
just
physical.
yelling or But I remember one of the worst times was in Lauren's room when she was a little kid. You guys were all out partying and whatever, and Chris like choked me and like held me up against the wall, and after I'd thrown a rock at Emily because we were playing a game, and I was scared in the dark backyard patio. It was a whole thing. It was so stupid, but yeah, I was like scared for my life. I was like, you know, it's scary to think like that's your dad. That's supposed to be a fun weekend. Like we're just barbecuing. There's kids playing a game, and then oh shit,
And
I'm
half
gonna
of
pass
the
out.
things I don't even remember, like there was a lot of situation happening, a lot of just interaction because there was so many kids and neighborhood kids and all the kids, and I was all about me. So, you know, if I wasn't having fun and somebody interrupted me, then, you know, I get mad because I can't. And yeah. So there are things that Lauren will tell me and I go, I'm sure that's true, but I don't remember.
Right? Yeah. And you wouldn't. Just like, yeah, when I called Chris and tried to bring up, you know, all the stuff that happened to me as a kid, and he's like, that didn't happen. I didn't do that. That was your idea. Like,
You were
that was
drunk
not
all
a
the time.
game.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I was not asking to be hit. Out of your mind to think that, yeah, no, kids don't deserve that.
I'm curious, when you moved to California to live with him, how did you feel when you found out that was happening?
I was terrified. I was like, please don't make me do this. Like, I didn't have a choice ultimately. I begged. I was like, I'll change my ways. I'll do whatever I have to do. I mean, and it was just because my grades weren't good. Like, ultimately, like, I don't even
remember,
know.
Brittany.
Like, I think, because I went my freshman year of my, or first semester of the sophomore year. But yes, so
Because I think you were just coming back when I first started coming back to take care of everybody.
Yeah.
And Wiley was about 5 years old.
Yeah. It was, yeah, like I had my friends all back home. Like I didn't want to leave for that. But then it was also like I knew being with him just wasn't going to be, you know, like safe. It just, being alone with him is not fun. Being around him, like he's just aggressive. And yeah, I didn't want to go. I didn't want to go at all. And I didn't have a choice. So that was terrible. And like, it wasn't all bad, but again, like as soon as he starts drinking, all bars are off. I remember just being yelled at, being slapped, hiding in my room, you know, just, I don't have many good memories. None. I met some cool friends at school, but I didn't want to go, not at all. What was the question?
That hurts my heart.
It hurts my heart too. I'm having a hard time figuring out how to
process all of it.
Yeah, you know, I know that the more that we talk about this, the more healing that comes from this, because I hope that you can believe that I was doing the best that I could with what I had.
Yeah, no, I do.
But hearing the other perspective from you as an adult, you know, and what that felt like and what that was like, feels terrible, you know, as it should, you know. When you're talking about him choking you up against the wall, I'm sitting over here and I'm just like, I'm having to pull back from old patterns because I want to just numb it and push it down. And I'm like, nope, we're just going to feel what that feels like, because fuck, what do you do? You know, like,
I was a very small little girl.
Yeah.
And
that didn't have a protector. And
that was my dad.
situation.
He was supposed to take care of me. He was supposed to love me.
Yeah.
And sometimes that doesn't look like it should.
Yeah. How do you heal your heart in that situation? How do you provide forgiveness?
I have Cameron.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't have to forgive.
Let's talk about that.
I know.
So here's an interesting perspective, and that's awesome. So I told someone the other day, I think it was on Chrissy's podcast, but I told her I had a realization the other day. I've been doing all sorts of work unpacking my life and healing different things.
As you do.
And I had a realization the other night talking with Cameron about something, because he was talking about how much he loves you girls and how important you are to him, and how he has always felt it's even better than him being your biological dad, because you guys chose him. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to get emotional saying this, but I said, I didn't realize how much you loved the girls, and I didn't allow you to have a full seat at the parenting table because I was trying to protect you girls. And I did that incorrectly, because Cameron has been the rock for our family, and you girls know that.
No, he really has.
I don't know how to cry with makeup on, just so you know. I'm really sorry. I don't know.
You're doing great.
This is very naked for me.
Hey.
I know, like, I would really
Let's
love some
do
clothes. Would you girls hand her a tissue, please? You don't want this that's been, trust me, you don't want the one that's here.
I
But,
sure can.
but Cameron has been the rock, you know,
Completely,
and
for everyone.
he said, he says, I don't feel like I ever was able to explain to you in a way where you understood. I don't see the girls any differently than I see Wiley. Those are my girls, you know, and fuck.
No, when I talk to anybody, when I'm ever in a conversation, when I say my dad, I mean Cameron.
Yeah.
And I say my biological father for Chris. Because it is like, Cameron is my dad.
Yeah,
he
is.
I want to be able to say it to his face.
Yeah.
But, you know, I think there is still part of me that has the association of dad as being a bad thing.
Yeah.
Because
So you have to work
for a
through
long
that.
time I thought, you know, what was happening to me was what a dad was supposed
Right,
to be.
right.
But Cameron is Cameron.
Cameron
you
is
know?
Cameron.
There should be another word
Yeah.
for that.
It's so funny, because when Emily was younger, she drew a picture of our family dynamic for school, and it was, I have a mom, a dad, and a Cameron. And it was almost like she was one-upping other kids at school. Like,
Yeah.
I have a mom, a dad, and a Cameron. And I just thought, God, how lucky those girls are, you know, to really be able to have that, because he has always adored you guys. And I just feel like an asshole that I didn't really realize that initially. You know, I don't know. I think I got twisted up in all sorts of stuff.
You're pretty busy.
Well, I think it's you protecting them, and you know, they're your babies.
I know.
You're doing what you think is right
I
in
just
that moment.
it's crazy because I look back at some of my limiting beliefs from before about how things are supposed to be or what you're supposed to do, and I've just blown most of that shit right out of the water and thought, how was that ever what I believed? Because it's outrageous. And so to be able to be open-minded enough to really realize that has been awesome. And I hope that, as you're able to heal some of that you're able to put that into whatever box you want that to be, because I know that Cameron absolutely adores that.
Yeah,
when you have those conversations with him, or when you guys, we were talking the other night about you guys reaching out and having a better relationship, just more contact and more whatever. Yeah. And he's like, I'm all in for all of that, which is exciting. He says, I would always want them to come to me. I'm always here. And like all of the things, it's just, as you grow up and you move on, I don't want to lose how close we can be and just continue to grow on that. So I hope that as you're healing from your wounds from your biological dad, and from, I'm not shy about, I've brought trauma to you as well in whatever form and fashion.
Vicious.
Shit, God, she's just she's not shy about it. She's not shy about it.
No, you were always better.
You win.
You were always the lesser of the two evils.
I didn't necessarily get to pick. The court decided, but I would have gone with you, So.
God, it is rough sometimes with this one.
You could keep custody, I guess.
Lucky you.
I know. What is one thing that you look back and think, God, I really wish she would have done that better? Whatever it is, like the biggest thing that jumps out.
Stopped at 1.
It's savage. Sorry, Annie and
No, that's a bad joke. Not a bad joke. That's a good joke.
That was a good joke.
Yeah, just I don't think there's anything that you really could have done or changed, or ultimately the stories you've told me about your family and your life situations. Yeah, I would have gotten the fuck out of there too. And I'm sure Chris was attractive at one point, and he had a motorcycle or some shit. Whatever, sure. Somebody can throw a check on you. Yeah.
Clearly, she hasn't listened to any of your podcasts, or else she would know.
I know. I do want all of our nudies at home to realize that my family doesn't actually listen to the podcast. No. So I don't know why, if they're scared or what's happening, but that is not where I get my support from as it relates to getting naked. So
you don't have to change anything. Nothing has to be different.
I know.
I think I have so much character because of all the abuse, and truly, I wouldn't change a thing.
You are who you are because of what you've come from, and it makes you who you are today.
You beat the fun into me.
I didn't beat you so much.
No, you didn't beat me. I know.
I mean, I wanted to. Real bad.
Oh,
no,
I could.
Just kidding.
You would have those eyes though.
Yeah.
You never had the chancla, but you had the.
Auntie had the chancla. That was the whole thing. Yeah.
The big chancla energy for sure.
Oh my God, that's you, Belinda, for sure. Yeah.
I can't even say chancla. What is even that?
What's a chancla?
It's a sandal, right?
Don't listen to her.
Your mom uses me. I don't know how to speak
memes
Spanish.
online. I don't know.
No, your auntie used to use that all the time. So
Yeah. It's a shoe. Yeah. Flip flop.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this has been, I would say, fun, but I do not feel like this has been fun at all. This has been something.
Not as painful as my childhood.
Shit. It's tough.
This is a comedy podcast, right?
I know, she's doing great, right?
Great.
Well, thank you. Thank you for coming
thanks for having
and
me.
being vulnerable and sharing your side of your childhood. We will continue to work on healing that. That I'm going to use that as my may I suggest. So since you don't listen to the podcast, I will tell you that on each one of the episodes I do a may I suggest. And my may I suggest for this week is being vulnerable enough to have these kind of conversations. Mm-hmm. Even if you have adult children, right? Because I don't think you realize how much healing can come from being vulnerable enough to have these conversations. And yes, it doesn't feel good.
It hurts.
It does hurt. It hurts on
you
both
cry,
sides.
You scream.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, it does. But I think the healing that it brings to really realize that I only want you to win. I only want the best for you, and I know that I didn't do a lot of stuff right. I know that. And I'm willing to take accountability for that. But I also don't want you to carry around through your entire life anger and resentment towards me for not being everything that you deserved and that you needed me to be, you know? So I hope that it helps you, that I am willing to take accountability for that. And I hope that, you know, offers you some sort of healing for you so that you can not drag that shit around through your life, you know, because that's what we do. You know, you have the trauma that happens and then you drag it around. So I appreciate you fixing your shit, especially as it relates to me, because, you know, I get to be the direct benefactor of an improved relationship with you. So,
Likewise. I mean, it takes two to tango.
Takes two to
I
tango.
would not be as mentally sound as I am without you also being as mentally sound as you are.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, like, since you've gotten sober, I mean, things in our family have just been improving so much. Yeah. And, you know, I think you were the center of the family before. You kind of always will be. It's, you know, we defer to you, and
I'm the eye of
we
the
are so much
tornado.
better because you are.
Yeah, I'm the eye of
It's
the
true.
storm. So when
Yeah.
I'm not in control, it's exactly
You
that.
have to take the reins back. Yeah, we need you.
I love it. Okay, well, that's our time for today. If you have questions or suggestions, send us an email. Our email address is ladies@letsgetnakedpodcast.com. Please do all the things to support us by following, sharing, rating, reviewing, or whatever we do for podcasts.
Tie our logo onto a carrier pigeon.
Whatever
if
you
you
need
got
to
a
do.
squirrel in
Yeah,
your neighborhood,
so-
you can
Yeah.
Do it.
Yeah, so we'll catch everybody next time. That's a wrap.
I'd love to help you get vulnerable. Let's get naked.